PACN Study Center Planning Workshop. So this event aims to review the progress of the PACN since its establishment, identify the current and emerging issues in the Philippines and the APEC region, assess, strengthen, and recalibrate the programs, membership, and committees of the network, revitalize the commitment and establish camaraderie among network members, and discuss the future of the PACN as a more dynamic, impactful, and trailblazing network. So the PACN planning workshop is divided into four major events, including the Forum on Advancing the Sustainable Futures in the APEC region through greater regional integration. The second part is the planning workshop. The third part is the steering committee meeting. And the last part of the event is the thesis and dissertation assistance program technical workshop. So this morning, we are joined by colleagues from the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, Ateneo de Manila University, Asian Institute of Management, APEC Policy Support Unit, the Central Luzon State University, the Department of Trade and Industry, the Foreign Service Institute, Konrad Adenauer
Recording in
Stiftung,
progress.
Philippines, the Mindanao State University, the Philippine American Educational Foundation, Silliman University, Tech for Good Institute Singapore, University of the Asia and the Pacific, and University of the Philippines, University of San Carlos Cebu, and Xavier University Ateneo de Cagayan. So apart from our on-site participants, we are also joined by our colleagues from the via Facebook Live. So to officially open the planning workshop, which is the public forum on advancing sustainable futures in the APEC region through research and development, may I call on the lead convener of the PASCN and the president of the PIDS, Dr. Aniceto C. Orbeta Jr. So Sir Bales, the floor is yours.
Doon ako sa gilid. Good morning, everyone. Esteemed colleagues, distinguished speakers, and valued participants, a warm welcome to all of the PSC and PIDS webinar themed Advancing Sustainable Futures in the APEC region through research and development. The Philippine APEC Study Center, or PSCN network, since its inception in 1996, has been instrumental in orchestrating policy-oriented research related to the Philippines' participation in APEC. PACN exemplifies a commitment to informed dialogue and policymaking in Asia-Pacific by bringing together a consortium of leading research institutions. The network has been pivotal in facilitating research that influences regional economic policies, fostering an environment conducive to sustainable growth. As we gather today, it is imperative to recognize the changing dynamics of our region. The APEC region, characterized by its diverse economies and rich cultural heritage, is witnessing an unprecedented challenges. Rapid economic integration has brought digital transformation, economic disparity, and environmental sustainability issues. Further compounding these challenges are the ongoing global economic realignments and the post-pandemic recovery phase, which have brought about shifts in trade dynamics, supply chain disruptions, and a need for economic resilience. In the Philippines, our emerging challenges are not theoretical but tangible realities impacting our daily lives. Our country, endowed with abundant natural resources, is tasked with critical challenge of balancing economic growth with environmental preservation. Our susceptibility to climate change makes this task more urgent, a significant threat to our archipelagic nation. Additionally, we grapple with urbanization and the digital divide, striving to promote equitable growth and ensure access to opportunities for all Filipinos. Tackling these issues demands both national and regional collaborative efforts, given the deep interconnection in our economies and ecosystems. Against this backdrop, the crucial role of research and development becomes apparent. To navigate these complex challenges effectively, we require innovative solutions rooted through research. The current need is for sustainable technologies, resilient economic policies, and equitable social programs. In this context, the collective expertise of researchers, policymakers, and academics is vital. Through the collaborative research, we can exchange insights and formulate effective strategies at both national and regional levels. Our collective endeavors are pivotal in achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which focus on economic prosperity, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. As we engage with our speakers, it is important to remember the primary objective of this webinar: to serve as a strategic platform for think tanks, academics, and policymakers. Our challenges are complex and require the benefits of collaborative research. By forming partnerships, joint initiatives, we can pool our resources, exchange best practices, and devise innovative, practical solutions to our region's challenges. In summary, this webinar represents more than a mere assembly. It's a call to action. It urges us to unite in our research and development endeavors, harnessing our varied expertise for the collective benefit of the APEC region. Let us jointly commit to this journey towards sustainable, resilient, and prosperous future for all. Thank you for your attention, and I eagerly participate in enriching discussions and collaboration that will emerge from this webinar. Good morning.
Thank you, Dr. Urbeta, for that insightful remarks. So now let me call on the moderator, Dr. Jules Relampagos, to introduce the speakers and facilitate the forum. Dr. Relampagos is the current chair of the Department of Economics of the University of San Carlos and Cebu. He teaches resource and environmental economics, energy economics, development economics, and time series analysis. He is also the manager of the USC Publishing House, the official publishing arm of the University of San Carlos. So, Dr. Julius, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Magandang umaga and mayong buntag sa tanan. Welcome to the Forum on Advancing Sustainable Futures in the APEC region through greater regional integration. This forum is the first segment of today's PASCN planning workshop. So thank you all to all our guests and participants who are here in Mactan room of EDSA Shangri-La Hotel, as well as to the participants who are joining us through Facebook Live and Zoom. This morning, we have a lineup of 4 distinguished speakers who will talk about advancing sustainable futures in the APEC region through greater regional integration. The first 2 speakers will be presenting in person here in Mactan room, while the last 2 speakers will be presenting virtually. Each speaker will be allocated 15 minutes for their presentation, and after all the presentations have been completed, an open forum will follow. May I request all participants to hold off your questions until the open forum. And for those joining us through Facebook Live and Zoom, you may type in your questions anytime in the Q&A box in Zoom or message your questions through Facebook. May I request our team here to kindly monitor the questions through Facebook, posted online, and forward them to me so I can read for everyone to hear. For both on-site and online questions, kindly state your full name, your institution, and if possible, identify the speaker or speakers you wish to address your question to. We will try our best to address as many questions as we can during the open forum. So, to start off, our first speaker is Mr. Marcos Angelo A.S. Punsalang, Director General APEC Philippine National Secretariat, Department of Foreign Affairs. He is the Chief Mission 2, currently assigned to the Office of the Undersecretary for Multilateral Affairs and International Economic Relations. He held overseas posts in the Philippine embassies and consulates in Lima, Santiago, Wellington, Saipan, and Port Moresby. He held the post of Director, Office of ASEAN Affairs, and Executive Director, Office of Consular Affairs at the Department of Foreign Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk about advancing sustainable futures in the APEC region through greater regional integration, let us give a round of applause to Mr. Marcos Angelo A.S. Punsalan.
Thank you, Dr. Lampagos and PASCN, for inviting me over here. It's my pleasure to be here to inform you about the results of the latest APEC summit in San Francisco, as well as ongoing developments with APEC Peru. I will also proceed through the history of APEC and what were the themes and actions of each respective host. Now, what is APEC? In November 1989, the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or what we know now as APEC, began as an informal dialogue group, but has since become the premier forum for facilitating economic growth, cooperation, trade, and investment in the Asia-Pacific region. Now, what is APEC's mission statement? APEC's primary goal is to support sustainable economic growth and prosperity in the Asia-Pacific region. APEC members are united in its drive to build a dynamic and harmonious Asia-Pacific community by championing free trade and open trade and investment, promoting and accelerating regional economic integration, encouraging economic and technical cooperation, and facilitating a favorable and sustainable business environment. APEC's initiatives turn policy goals into concrete results and agreements into tangible benefits. What is the APEC Putrajaya Vision 2040? In 2020, APEC's leaders unveiled the APEC Putrajaya Vision 2040, or as we call it in shorthand, APJV 2040. This envisions an open, dynamic, resilient, and peaceful Asia-Pacific community by the year 2040 for the prosperity of all the people and future generations. Remaining committed to APEC's mission and its voluntary, non-binding, and consensus-building principles, APEC will achieve this vision by pursuing the following three economic drivers: trade and investment, innovation and digitalization, and strong, balanced, secure, sustainable, and inclusive growth. To maintain APEC's unique position as the premier forum for regional economic cooperation, as well as a modern, efficient, and effective incubator of ideas, APEC members will embrace continuous improvements of APEC as an institution through good governance and stakeholders' engagements. Next slide, please. APEC over the years. APEC has 21 members referred to as member economies, which account for approximately 40% of the world's population, approximately 54% of the world's GDP, and around 44% of world trade. The Philippines is one of the 12 founding members, and currently APEC has expanded to 21 member economies. These are Australia, Brunei Darussalam, Canada, Indonesia, Japan, the Republic of Korea, Malaysia, New Zealand, Singapore, Thailand, and the United States, with the People's Republic of China, Hong Kong, and Chinese Taipei entering APEC in 1991. And Chile, Mexico, Papua New Guinea, Peru, and Russia joining APEC throughout the 1990s. APEC working groups carry out the APEC's work in specific sectors such as directed by APEC economic leaders, APEC ministers, APEC sectoral ministers, and senior officials. There are 35 Philippine government partner agencies in the DFA chaired Technical Board on APEC Matters, or TIBAM, engaged in APEC's broad range agenda ranging from trade and investment, economic and technical cooperation, customs procedures, and regulatory reform to women's economic empowerment, health, among others. APEC leaders have adopted the Bogor Goals in 1994 in Indonesia and is committed to achieve free, open trade and investment by 2010 for industrial economies and by 2020. Developing economies by further reducing trade barriers through pursuing individual and collective actions and by promoting the free flow of goods, services, and capital. APEC launched the Putrajaya Vision 2040 in 2020 in Malaysia that replaces the 1994 Bogor Goals, setting out a new mission statement for APEC for the next 20 years. APEC members developed the Aotearoa Plan of Action in 2021 in New Zealand, which sets out individual and collective actions towards achieving the APJ 2040, along with how APEC members will evaluate progress by reviewing and adapting the APA over time to ensure it remains comprehensive, balanced, and relevant across all elements of the APJV 2040. APEC adopts its first ever sustainability framework, the Bangkok Goals on Biocircular Green Economy or BCG in 2022 in Thailand. The BCG economy model integrates three economic approaches where technology and innovation are used to create value, reduce waste, advance resource efficiency, and promote sustainable business models. There are three official APEC observers. These are the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Secretariat, the Pacific Economic Council or PECC, and the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat. Representatives from these groups participate in APEC meetings and have full access to documents and information related to the work of member economies, helping to track progress and provide guidance in support of APEC objectives. Next slide, please. Over the years, APEC has gone beyond the three economic drivers and expanded its scope as working groups discuss other issues and matters related in sustaining the region's economic growth, such as health pandemics, emergency preparedness, and climate mitigation, among others. In health pandemics, the emergence of regional and global health pandemics impacts not only the health sector, but also agriculture, trade, tourism, transportation, and business. Excuse me. APEC works with partners to improve people's health and well-being and to help reduce the impact of health-related threats to the economy, trade, and security of member economies. Also, there are emergency preparedness. This will enable APEC to better cope with natural catastrophes, especially us in the Philippines. We're very vulnerable to this. And also climate change mitigation. Climate change is believed to contribute to the increasing number of natural disasters, about 70% of which occur in the Asia-Pacific region. APEC aims to tackle climate change through various concerted efforts such as fostering renewable energies, collaborating on ocean and forest conservation, and promoting trade in environmental goods, among others. Next slide, please. What are the APEC themes and priorities for 2015 to 2024? Every year, one of the 21 APEC members play host to APEC events and serves as the APEC chair. At the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting, or AELM, held at the end of each year, a declaration is issued which lays out the priorities for APEC over the following year. Ministers representing various portfolios, senior officials, and members of various APEC forums meet throughout the year to launch new initiatives, track progress of existing programs, and implement directives from the leaders. The Philippines hosting in 2015 influenced the trajectory of APEC as Peru's hosting in 2016 and Vietnam's hosting in 2017 carried the Philippine 2015 hosting priorities. Papua New Guinea's hosting in 2018 it concluded without the issuance of both leaders' declaration and joint ministerial statement, as three main sections in the two drafts were subject to heated debates. Mainly between the US and China because of the multilateral trading system, digital economy, and inclusive growth through structural reforms. So that was there were some debates regarding these issues. Next slide, please. APEC themes and priorities. Continuation. During Chile's hosting in 2019, the AELM was canceled due to political unrest, which required Chile's government to fully dedicate itself to addressing the social demands of the Chilean people. Amid the global pandemic, APEC leaders meet virtually for the first time, determined to overcome the challenges of COVID-19 and emerge from the crisis through coordinated action and cooperation during Malaysia's hosting in 2020. APEC members unveiled the new APJV 2040 to carry over the work under the original 1994 Bogor goals that reached maturity this year. APEC leaders issued the 2020 Leaders Declaration, which highlighted the need for international cooperation for economic recovery and amid the COVID-19 pandemic. New Zealand's hosting in 2021 is APEC's first fully virtual year, with APEC economies taking extraordinary measures to respond to the economic and health crisis and work towards recovery. APEC leaders adopted the Leaders Declaration and endorsed the APA, a blueprint to implement the APJV 2040. During Thailand's hosting in 2022, APEC officials, ministers, and leaders met in person for the first time since 2020 to prepare for the post-pandemic era. Aware of the need for an inclusive and sustainable recovery, as well as for the need to address climate change and other environmental challenges in a meaningful way, leaders endorsed the Bangkok goals on the biocircular green economy, a comprehensive framework to further APEC sustainability objectives. Next slide, please. During the US hosting this year, the APEC leaders' 2023 Golden Gate Declaration, San Francisco Principles on Integrating Inclusivity and Sustainability into Trade and Investment Policy Annex, and the 2023 APEC Ministerial Meeting Joint Statement were adopted despite few diverging positions due to the geopolitical issues in APEC. Peru's hosting in 2024 under the theme Empower, Include, Grow will align with the APJ Vision 2040, the APA, and the Bangkok goals on the BCG economy to ensure APEC's continuity of work on its permanent agenda. Peru's priorities will focus on three drivers. Number one, trade and investment for inclusive and interconnected growth. Number two, innovation and digitalization to promote transition to the formal and global economy. And number three, sustainable growth for resilient development. For the first priority, based on the Lima Declaration on the Free Trade Area of the Asia Pacific, or FTAAP, which was adopted in 2016, Peru would like to propose a new vision of FTAAP. Member economies are invited to consider topics such as inclusion, resilience, connectivity, and sustainability, along with traditional trade and issues. A reflection on both the divergences and convergences among FTAs in the Asia-Pacific region would be conducive to this objective. For the second priority, Peru would like to propose recommendations of best practices and public policies to empower the most vulnerable segments of our population to successfully transition from informality to the formal economy and into the Asia-Pacific markets, with an emphasis on innovation and digitalization as some of the most important tools to facilitate this transition. For the third priority, sustainability is another key concept that secures and strengthens growth in the long term. And there is the need to include growing segments of our population in a just energy transition, with sound arrangements to ensure their food security. For those reasons, Peru would like to jointly work with all APEC economies on the development of A, policy guidance for the use of low-carbon hydrogen in the Asia-Pacific region, and B, APEC principles for preventing and reducing food loss and waste. Further research and study on these areas in the context of Philippines are strongly encouraged. I just have a glass of water, please. Slide 9, please. Brief overview of the role Philippines plays in APEC. During the Philippines' first hosting in 1996, the Philippines developed the Action Plan for Economic and Technical Cooperation, which allows us to benefit from APEC through knowledge, expertise, capacity building, and technical assistance from other members year after year. Again, the Philippines hosted APEC in 2015 and championed the MSEs and their inclusion in the global economy. Economic empowerment of women and strengthening quality growth by addressing income inequality, improving our institution, tackling climate change. What are the Philippine positions pushed so far under President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos's leadership? One of them is financing a just, sustainable, and affordable energy transition. Through partnerships with the business sector, the Philippines needs to invest more on clean energy to preserve and protect the environment while ensuring that we are energy secure and sufficient. Another is deeper cooperation in health and modernizing health systems to ensure that our health professionals are recognized and provided with the welfare they deserve. Third is digitalization and innovation. Given the imminence of the digital transformation and how PH can best prepare our workforce and the larger human resource, including digital participation of our MSE. Another one is cooperation in food security, particularly focusing on research and development, innovation and equity and inclusivity so as to benefit our small farmers and in climate action and disaster preparedness given the urgent need.
Recording in
Set
progress.
sectoral health meetings for transportation, trade, disaster management, food security, health and economy, energy, women and economy, MSMEs, and finance, including principles on the non-binding just energy transition, and for achieving food security through sustainable agri-food systems in the APEC region. Another document was the 2023 APEC Ministerial Meeting Joint Statement. APEC ministers concluded the AMM with the issuance of a joint statement to further advance an interconnected APEC region, inspire innovation and sustainability, as well as foster an inclusive Asia-Pacific. Alongside these outcome documents, a standalone chair statement on the 2023 AALM chair statement on the 2023 AMM was issued. And APEC's non-binding guidelines on logistics-related services that support the movement of essential goods during a public health emergency were also issued due to lack of consensus in these texts. Also, the Philippines, we're very proud of this. The Philippines was proclaimed the winner of the 2023 APEC Digital Prosperity Award for developing an app called Emerge. This was developed by a Filipino duo, which is an export readiness assessment tool to assist MSMEs in entering the global market. The award recognizes innovative applications that have potential to further prosperity and inclusive growth. The Philippines also won the Popularity Choice Award in the 2023 APEC Photo Contest, which aims to capture the efforts of APEC economies in balanced economic and social goals. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director General Punsalang, for giving us an overview of APEC and its key priority areas. So we will now move on to the second speaker for this morning, who will be presenting in person at Mactan Room at the Shangri-La. So our next speaker is Attorney Alan B. Hepty. He is the Undersecretary for International Trade Policy Group, Department of Trade and Industry. Prior to his appointment at DTI, he was a commissioner of the Philippine Tariff Commission and served as Deputy Director General of the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines. He is a senior fellow in public service at Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy and a member of the Supreme Court of the Philippines Subcommittee for the Revision of the Rules of Procedure for Intellectual Property Rights Cases. He is an author of a book entitled Intellectual Property Law Compendium. A lawyer by profession, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about 2024 and beyond, what is next for APEC, let us give a round of applause to Attorney Alan Hepty.
Thank you, Dr. Lampagos, for that introduction. Dr. Orbeta, my colleague at the Tariff Commission before, former Commissioner Dr. Manzano. Of course, DG Ponsalang, my colleague from the DVFA, particularly working with me in APEC and also the recently concluded 3 pillars under the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Colleagues in government and also from the private sector, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Firstly, I would like to thank the Philippine APEC Study Center Network Secretariat for the invitation and the opportunity to share our views on APEC's work for 2024 and beyond. We very much value the partnership and the network's invaluable contribution in furthering APEC agenda, as well as Philippine trade agenda, dealing with other trading and investment partners. Thank you for having DTI as part of this discussion. This forum is very timely given the recent conclusion of APEC 2023 and ongoing preparations for APEC 2024, as well as our policy direction to expand the country's FTA network. Thus, bear with me if in the process of my presentation, I will be injecting some of the issues and I would say concerns that we encounter when we deal with other trading and investment partners, even outside of APEC. Recognizing the ever-changing global trade landscape and the emergence of new and cross-cutting issues related to trade, it is important that we uphold APEC's position as the premier forum for regional economic cooperation and its role as a modern, efficient, and effective incubator of ideas. More than this, the collaborative work of PASIN also complements policy options developed or being considered by APEC economies. Given this context, it may be well to be reminded first of APEC's vision then and now. Of course, some of them have been highlighted already by DG Punsalang earlier. With the goal of creating greater prosperity for its people, APEC took a comprehensive approach in its work to address the economic and social dimension of development. Under the Bogor goals, APEC economies committed to achieve free and open trade and investment by 2010 for industrialized economies and by 2020 for developing economies. Hence, APEC's agenda focused on three main pillars: trade and investment liberalization, business facilitation, and economic and technical cooperation. Of course, when you talk about trade and investment liberalization, this refers to actions directed to reduce tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade and investment that boost job creation, incomes, and of course, growth. On business facilitation, basically economies committed to pursue measures to reduce the time, cost, and uncertainty of doing business in the region and open new economic opportunities, including for small firms, women, and youth. And of course, economic and technical cooperation, this builds the technical capacity of APEC's diverse members to promote trade, investment, and robust, secure, and sustainable economic growth that widely benefits the region's people. These focus areas were further expanded in the Osaka Action Agenda, adopted in 1995, and serve as the implementation plan of the Bogor Goals. The Osaka Action Agenda sets out a comprehensive range of actions to realize the Bogor vision through both liberalization and facilitation, which are recognized to be inseparable aspects of reforms to create a more integrated Asia-Pacific economy. Since its adoption in 1994 through 2020, APEC economies demonstrated commitment to achieving Bogor goals as deemed from progress achieved by the region. Based on the review conducted by the APEC Policy Support Unit, APEC economies collectively achieved the following. 1. Trade and investment flows involving APEC members have grown tremendously. 2. Tariff rates have dropped significantly across the APEC region, but high tariffs remain in some sectors. 3. There is higher prevalence on non-tariff measures. 4. Openness on trade in services, but restrictions remain high in some services sectors. Restrictions in digital issues are increasing in recent years. 5. Efforts to improve the investment climate in the APEC region have mixed results. 6. Positive developments in trade facilitation procedures have simplified and the quality of logistics have improved. 7. Easier and more cost-efficient to do business in the APEC region, but there is still room for improvement. 8. More trade facilitating than trade restrictive measures have been implemented since the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic. And 9. APEC has enjoyed high economic growth and improved social outcomes as evidenced by declining poverty incidence. But APEC needs to put more effort on this. Although assessments showed good results or good progress in many areas such as tariffs, FTA and regional trade agreement network, services, investments, trade facilitation, and regulatory quality, it also indicated unfinished business towards the Bogor goals in some initiatives and reiterated the need for continued improvement in a few areas or sectors. In 2020, APEC adopted the Putrajaya Vision 2040, which sets out the forum's priorities for the next 20 years. To guide the implementation of the Putrajaya Vision, APEC agreed on the Aotearoa Plan of Action, which sets out economies' agreed individual and collective actions to 2040. So from the Bogor goals to the Putrajaya Vision, what is in store for APEC? As mentioned, the Putrajaya Vision and APEC's new long-term blueprint, which aims for an open, dynamic, resilient, and peaceful Asia-Pacific community by 2040 for the prosperity of all our people and future generations. This will be achieved by pursuing three economic drivers. 1. Trade and investment. 2. Innovation and digitalization. And 3. Strong, balanced, secure, sustainable, and inclusive growth. Given this framework, the PASIN may observe the shift in APEC's agenda. While heavy focus remains on trade and investment issues, non-traditional
Recording in
digitalization,
progress.
and even welfare of the people, and I would say even issues on labor, becomes more prominent when it comes to policy focus. With APEC's agenda in mind, I now share with you the theme and priorities carried by APEC through the years. Starting with the Philippines chairmanship in 2015 through 2019, inclusion, particularly for micro, small, and medium enterprises and women, took center stage. It is then that we were able to lobby MSME's internationalization through the Boracay Action Agenda to globalize MSMEs. In 2020 through 2023, APEC's agenda took a shift to resiliency and sustainability in response to the global pandemic and economic downturn. Then, discussions on economic integration, connectivity, and value chains gained traction in an effort to foster a strong and inclusive economic recovery. Amidst the global challenges and widening inequality, Peru, as chair of APEC 2024, is highlighting the social dimension in APEC's work towards achieving resiliency, inclusion, and sustainability. We noted their commitment on carrying out a people-centered approach to development, as shared in the recently concluded APEC informal senior officials meeting. That said, what is to be expected from APEC for 2024 and beyond? Taking into consideration existing mandates, particularly the Putrajaya vision and Peru's theme and priorities for 2024, the DTI sees the APEC agenda as evolving more holistically. In many ways, the Philippines also contributed to this development when it championed inclusive growth and development that gave prominence to MSMEs through the Boracay Action Agenda. Currently, work will center on economic integration, digital economy, inclusion, sustainable development. Maybe if I can inject here, currently we're also talking with the EU, and we are expecting that there will be heavy provisions or agenda when it comes to trade and sustainable development. And maybe study or researches along these areas would be very helpful to us in navigating our trade relations and with the EU. As a strong ally of APEC, we can continue to contribute by delving further into the following work streams. We particularly highlight key areas of interest for the Philippines. But before I proceed, allow me to share some of the new and emerging issues of elements being discussed, not just in APEC, but also other international fora and free trade agreements being negotiated. The dynamic nature of how we conduct trade is due to the evolving environment of the global economy as a whole. As a result, we have seen various specific elements being discussed for inclusions, especially in our engagement with advanced economies. One, on remanufactured goods, which we consider as a part of circular economy. In fact, that is the mantra of developed economies who have been pushing for this particular element. Nonetheless, we see an opportunity for us to build a niche in this area. And maybe this is one area of research or studies also that we should focus on. Will there be benefits for the Philippines if we embrace provisions or commitments with respect to remanufactured goods? Will it generate or build industries in the process? So in our word, these are the questions that we have to address as we conduct studies on this. Also, we want to know what are the possible impacts of this policy on remanufactured goods to our local industries and how we can strategically position the country to benefit from it. Also, for inclusive trade, where numerous areas are encompassed, such as trade and sustainable development, trade and gender, and trade and indigenous peoples, among others. These areas, while easily noble in objectives and intentions, more studies and analysis may be needed so that policymakers can be guided on levels of ambitions needed for purposes of FTA commitments, extent of capacity building needed, and the repercussions of said elements when it comes to trade policy. We also have anti-corruption, good regulatory practices, and good governance elements. We understand that the rationale behind this is to level the playing field and ensure that foreign investors or companies are not disadvantaged by a weak regime on anti-corruption and good regulatory practices. If you will note, under the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, wherein three pillars have been concluded, one pillar there is focused on fair economy, and that covers anti-corruption and also tax evasion. Another element is on government procurement. What are the policy implications if this element be incorporated in an FTA containing a higher level of commitment beyond cooperation and transparency? How do you balance rules and disciplines on government procurement vis-a-vis competition and the country's interest to boost its local industries? State-owned enterprises is also another element that needs to be focused on. This element underscores adherence to international standards in terms of designating special rights and privileges, as well as ensuring that state-owned enterprises act accordingly to commercial consideration. As this is relatively one of the new elements being introduced in an FTA, more studies on this area would help policymakers navigate the repercussion of having commitment on this element. With the foregoing, where should PASIN, think tanks, and the academics focus on? First, on the free trade area of the Asia-Pacific, this was first discussed in the APEC process in 2004 upon the recommendation of the APEC Business Advisory Council, which called for APEC leaders to show strong political commitment to negotiate a region-wide agreement that would bring economic benefits to its members. The Philippines continues to actively engage in the discussions in APEC on realizing the eventual free trade in the Asia-Pacific. Enhancing the free trade area of the Asia-Pacific agenda is based upon building more convergences, especially on new disciplines. The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement and the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership are good basis and foundation for advancing next-generation trade and investment discussions in APEC. In this context, we recommend that PASIN focuses on exploring the practical applications and actions in realizing the free trade area in the Asia-Pacific, especially with focus on where businesses and micro, small, and medium enterprises can benefit. These include the following areas. One, harmonizing trade rules, regulations, and standards. Two, developing common rules and standards for cross-border data flows. Maybe data localization also can be included, online transactions, and consumer protection. Three, enhancing supply chain resilience and diversification. Four, incorporating environmental, labor, and social consideration into trade policies. Five, publishing data on CPTPP and RCEP utilization to support a more nuanced understanding of barriers and best practices. Second, work could also be done on the considerations for and impacts of forging digital economy agreements or digital economy agreements which are changing the global trading landscape. APEC member economies could draw upon existing agreements and dedicated high-quality digital agreements, such as the Digital Economy Partnership Agreement of Chile, New Zealand, and Singapore, and the Singapore-Australia Digital Economy Agreement. Digital economy agreements aim to address a range of emerging digital economy issues, such as artificial intelligence, digital identities, digital inclusion, cross-border data flows, personal data and consumer rights, and even machine learning, among others. Given that only a few members in APEC have established digital economy agreements, a study on the benefits of establishing such agreements for the Philippines would be useful, particularly given continued discussions in APEC on free trade area in the Asia-Pacific and next-generation trade and investment issues, as well as the implementation of the APEC Internet and Digital Economy Roadmap. Third, innovation. As mentioned earlier, APEC continues to further its work on the digital economy agenda in the region. Guided by the APEC Internet and Digital Economy Roadmap, as well as the APEC Putrajaya Vision, which has a pillar on digitalization and innovation, we also would like to suggest that the PASIN supports work on the need to establish AI frameworks that not only foster digital innovation, but also prioritize inclusivity. Crafting comprehensive frameworks becomes essential for promoting equitable access to the benefits of artificial intelligence, particularly in the realm of digital commerce. AI has the potential to revolutionize various sectors from manufacturing to services. Also, by embracing AI-driven solutions, businesses can experience increased efficiency, cost effectiveness, and improve overall competitiveness. While discussions in APEC on AI and the fourth industrial revolution do exist, we note that it is imperative to address the potential challenges and opportunities this present, particularly on the future of work. This is indeed a dynamic and evolving area. It may therefore also be worthwhile to explore the Philippines' policy responses and initiatives to address challenges presented by AI and the 4IR not only in the domestic setting, but also in terms of international cooperation. Another aspect that may be considered is on exploring the potential of the region's creative industries through the effective use of digital and innovative technologies. It may be noted that the concept of creative industries was initially introduced to APEC in 2014 by Indonesia. In the Philippines, much work has been done to support this industry, including the passage of our Creative Industry Act. Recognizing the economic and social benefit of creative industries, it may be helpful to see how we can use APEC and its extensive work on digitalization, innovation as a platform to build the competitiveness of our creative economy. Lastly, on promoting trade policies to foster inclusive and sustainable development. Comparatively, work in this area is in the nascent stage and targeted efforts to support all sectors of the society is needed to achieve the region's collective action. As the APEC 2024 SOM Chair Ambassador Carlos Vasquez would say, in today's world, prosperity is no longer based on the mere accumulation of material wealth, but on resiliency, inclusion, and sustainability. As such, we recommend PASIN's consideration of the following issues to support the Philippines' further work in this area. 1. Opportunities and challenges in liberalizing trade in environmental goods and services. APEC agreed to the APEC Environmental Goods List in 2014. Economists also introduced the APEC Reference List of Environmental and Environmentally Related Services. It may be noted that similar discussions are being undertaken in the WTO with Environmental Goods Agreement. It will be useful to be informed of the trade opportunities in expanding this list and committing further liberalization efforts and scope for the Philippines to join or support the work. Second, promoting environment-friendly business models and practices. Addressing environmental challenges takes a whole of economic effort in order to be effective. As such, businesses have a big role to play in climate change mitigation and adaptation. In 2022, APEC adopted the Bangkok Goals on Biocircular Green Economy. However, there are also calls to consider concepts such as remanufacturing, the circular economy, and environmental, social, and governance, among others. How relevant are these in APEC's vision, and to what extent are we able to adopt it in APEC? Third, addressing inefficient fossil fuel subsidies in APEC. Since 2009, APEC has committed to rationalize and phase out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies that encourage wasteful consumption, while recognizing the importance of providing those in need with essential energy services. How has APEC responded to this, and will the Philippines be able to support such agenda? If you will note, the trend right now is that many countries, particularly developed countries, have been asking their partners to commit on the eradication of inefficient fossil fuel subsidies Of course, there are also issues how to balance the said approach with the current needs of developing countries and these developing countries. Fourth, enhancing inclusion in trade, including through the consideration of labor rights, human capital, and strategies for poverty reduction and social inclusion. So given Peru's people-centered approach, how are we able to leverage on APEC's current agenda to promote interests of our workers? For example, in the case of the Philippines, we are very much interested in promoting the welfare of our maritime workers and also other land-based workers. Participation of or fifth, participation of women, micro, small, and medium enterprises, groups with untapped economic potential, and indigenous peoples in economic activities, as well as transitioning from the informal to formal economy. Building on APEC's previous work and existing work streams, such as the Boracay Action Agenda and the La Serena Roadmap, how can APEC further support their development and integration in value chains? I would like to underscore that in view of the recommended areas for PASIN, think tanks, and the academics to focus the research on, the DTI in 2022 forged a strategic partnership with PIDS. It is one of the department's initiatives to strengthen our technical capacity in engaging in trade negotiation. The strategic and institutional partnership between the DTI and PIDS aims to conduct collaborative research and related activities that will address knowledge gaps in international trade. The partnership between our institutions is strategic, considering that DTI's mandate to further the country's international trade and investment activities, and PIDS, which is to serve as a research arm of the government in support of formulating national development plans and policies. The MOU strategically supports the department's Bureau of International Trade Relations functions, which includes determining the appropriate approach in representing the country's interests and positions in various international fora. Considering the various emerging issues and elements, PIDS research materials and expertise are instrumental for us to have a more comprehensive understanding of these areas. We hope that the ideas presented can help PASIN maps out its work agenda for the coming year. Rest assured that the DTI stands ready to work and collaborate with the network. Again, maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Undersecretary Alan Hepty, for that very inspirational discussion on the path for APEC's vision for the Asia-Pacific community that supports sustainable growth and development. So that ends the first two speakers who have presented on site. So we shall now move on to another platform in which the next two speakers will be presenting virtually. So the first virtual speaker is Mr. Keith C. Detros, Program Manager for Tech for Good Institute in Singapore. He has years of experience on evidence-based policy research and stakeholder engagement, and currently works on areas at the nexus of technology and public policy. He previously served as a digital economy specialist at the U.S. Embassy in Manila, where he covered entrepreneurship, innovation, technology, policy, and cybersecurity. He was a former research specialist at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. He holds a master's degree in international affairs from the National University of Singapore and a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of the Philippines, Manila. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk about from tech for growth to tech for good, shaping the next phase of Southeast Asia's growth through sustainable digital development, let us give a warm on-site and virtual applause to Mr. Keith C. Detros.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lampagos. Thank you so much. Maayong buntag sa tanang. I'd like to also take this opportunity to greet my former bosses, mentors, and colleagues at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. I am Keith. I am a program manager for the Tech for Good Institute. And I'll start first with a few information about the Institute. So the Tech for Good Institute is a nonprofit entity founded in 2021, and we're still relatively young at around 2 years old. We are founded around the same time when there are plans for ASEAN's digital integration and connectivity, and our mission is to contribute to the development, the adoption, and governance of digital solutions and the business models it enables so that the promise of technology can be leveraged for inclusive, sustainable, and equitable growth for Southeast Asia. As an institute, our research focus is on the digital economy, and we cover basically the Southeast Asia six, mainly Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. But I'm sure that while we cover the six economies, the issues that are faced by the Southeast Asia six are also the same issues that are faced by some of the APEC member countries. I have the pleasure today of sharing with you the findings of our recent study from Tech for Growth to Tech for Good. I hope to be able to share key and emerging issues in the region where development policy research can focus on. I've also included a spotlight on the Philippines. This presentation is a scene setter, but I'm happy to continue the conversation. So in the next 15 minutes, I'll share what we have learned in convening digital economy stakeholders across Southeast Asia on how countries in the region envision the next phase of growth for the digital economy. We all know the pandemic accelerated digital adoption, but looking ahead, what kinds of growth do we want to see, and what is the role of the digital economy in enabling this growth? And like our forum today is titled, How Do We Advance a Sustainable Future for the Region? So the study was commissioned and funded by the Singapore government through the Infocom Media Development Authority, and we conducted 6 in-country roundtables in Southeast Asia earlier this year. This involved over 130 participants from government agencies, digital economy companies, and think tanks and civil society organizations. In the Philippines, we were very honored to have partnered with the Asian Institute of Management, with AIM, to bring key stakeholders in the digital economy together. I will share top-line regional insights and then delve deeper into the key findings for the Philippines. So as DG Punsalang and Yusek Hepti has already mentioned, digital transformation is one of the key megatrends of our region. The Philippines has been one of the fastest growing digital economies, and in 2021 alone, the country achieved a gross merchandise value of $17 billion through digital transactions, and is expected to reach around 40 billion by 2025. And the Philippine government is recognizing the potential it brings. In the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028, a strategy framework was included where it identified key sectors of growth in the digital economy. It includes e-commerce, fintech, platform companies, and the gig economy. Across the region, however, as well, governments are similarly prioritizing digital economy growth. While Southeast Asia 6 is often regarded as a potential single market of great promise, each government operates with its own unique political, geostrategic, social, and cultural context. However, in our conversations through the roundtable discussions we conducted across the region, we found 2 common objectives to ensure that digital transformation of economy and society is inclusive. So first, countries in the region are committed to implement digitalization of government and public services. This includes e-government initiatives, as well as encouraging more citizen participation through digital technologies. And second, as also hinted by our previous speakers, governments in the region are advancing digitalization of the micro, small, and medium enterprises and other key sectors. Aside from these 2 common objectives, there are also common enablers to achieving these goals. One is the development of digital infrastructure. So all governments across the region have their priorities set on this. Second, building digital literacy. Third, developing digital talent. Fourth, fostering trust in the digital ecosystem. And trust, the issue of digital trust has come up a lot, especially amidst the rising cyber threats in the region. Fourth is encouraging innovation and entrepreneurship, which goes towards what our previous speakers have also mentioned. And fifth is strengthening regional cooperation. These actually are not surprising, and I'm sure you've heard about this all before, but there was another sentiment that perhaps is gaining more traction. While economic value is crucial, it is not enough. We are seeing that the approach of move fast and break things, popularized by the early internet boom, is giving way to a new paradigm in which stakeholders, including digital economy companies, are called upon to account for the social and environmental impact of development, deployment, and use of their products and services. There is much appetite to foresight and proactively manage the consequences of rapid adoption of new technologies. The roundtable participants highlighted 6 concerns over the rapid digital transformation in the region. So first, we have digital inequity and digital divide. I'll just interject as well. This could also come of the Philippine APEC study center network. So first was on the digital inequity and digital divide. From a regional perspective, we've heard about how digital integration may face challenges due to the varying capacities of countries. So we were in Jakarta around 2 weeks ago to support the start of the ASEAN's Digital Economy Framework Agreement negotiations. And one of the key takeaways from the conversation was the importance of recognizing that countries do not have the same starting region in integration. How do we ensure that it does not exacerbate the existing inequalities? The digital divide not only exists among countries, but if you look or delve deeper into countries as well, there are also urban and rural digital divide, and the impact of digital transformation in far-flung areas needs to also be understood. Second, cybersecurity and vulnerability of digital systems. There are increasing conversations around the region on how sophisticated cyber threats are becoming. The challenge for economies is not only to think about cybersecurity, but also cyber resilience, which means that it is the capacity to adapt to the evolving cyber threats. The Tech for Good Institute has a current framework on how we should start thinking about cyber resilience, and it's available on our website. I'm happy to share as well that study with the network. Third, in the realm of labor, a key issue is the reskilling and upskilling of the workforce. Some possible topics include what are the necessary skills that are needed, not only to create the next generation of the digital workforce, but also what are the necessary skills that we should equip the existing labor force with so that they can transition into digital economy jobs. Fourth is also concerns on data protection. With data becoming an essential part of the digital economy. Questions about consent come up, and how should economies work together to scale up data protection? 5 is the threats to social fabric. There are also key questions about the effects of misinformation and disinformation to society, and how it erodes trust and also dampens the adoption of digital technologies. We also recently participated in the annual public policy conference of the PADS on the twin transition. It was very timely because environmental impact also comes up as one of the key issues within the region. The topics or the discussions talk about not only digital sustainability, but also sustainable digitalization. So we do have some ways to go about achieving this baseline of responsible and sustainable digitalization. From our research across over 400 digital economy companies in Southeast Asia, it showed that while 85% of DECs or digital economy companies has expressed intention towards responsible innovation and sustainability, fewer than half have implemented any initiatives to put those intentions into action. Furthermore, only a quarter of DECs assessed have formally reported on their non-financial impact with clear metrics and targets. This is not easy in a changing regulatory risk and market environment when many DECs are under the pressure to demonstrate profitability. So with digital technologies evolving rapidly, operating responsibly is a moving goalpost. Yet we have DECs, or DECs need to evolve, if only to maintain the license to operate. We found that cybersecurity, so among the digital economy companies, cybersecurity and data protection were on top of the list of non-financial concerns, likely because this is the increased scrutiny from both governments and the market. On the other hand, environmental impact from carbon footprint to waste management of the DECs are not really high on their agenda, likely because these are not yet compliance issues in general. While sustainable digitalization is important, roundtable participants across 6 countries expressed the imperative for innovation to move from economic growth to sustainable growth and development. This means that tech should not only be used for growth, but tech should be used for good. Towards this broadened ambition for the digital economy, the key enablers previously identified have also broadened. They can be broadly grouped into encouraging innovation as well as fostering the digital society, a confident digital society. First, innovating not just on the technical level, but also encouraging innovation in business models and modes of governance. Not only or only with innovation at all levels can there be an enabling ecosystem for growth, while protecting citizens and society and ensuring national interests for the population. We saw great enthusiasm to invest in interconnected and interdependent types of innovations spanning technology, business innovation, as well as regulatory innovation. The reality is that businesses move fast and policies may not be able to catch up. So technological breakthroughs and new business innovations can also be unpredictable and uncertain. So how can governance and innovation enable one another? So the first growth or the first broadening of the ambition was that from fostering trust in the digital ecosystem, the roundtable participants noted that governance of emerging technologies is also important. It is an essential element of the digital ecosystem. For example, the onus to ensure responsible development and the use of new technologies, such as artificial intelligence, is currently largely in the hands of digital economy companies that are investing in the technologies for commercial gain. But stakeholders are proactively and calling for a collaborative approach from society, industry, and government to address knowledge asymmetries, as well as a multi-stakeholder process to develop and implement fit-for-purpose frameworks and standards to build trust in the emerging technologies. The roundtable participants also cautioned against overly stringent or premature regulation that could stifle innovation or prove impractical to implement. They called for more open knowledge sharing between the public and the private sector to enable regulatory coherence and effective governance to achieve desired outcomes. Other approaches to governance of emerging technologies and new business models include self-regulation, codes of conduct, governance frameworks, pilots, and regulatory sandboxes. On the topic of regulatory sandboxes, the Tech for Good Institute will release a landscape regional study on sandbox initiatives by early January 2024. We mapped out around 39 sandboxes across Southeast Asia in 10 different sectors and how they are being implemented across economies. We will share that study with the network again once it is ready. Second, from encouraging innovation and entrepreneurship, it was to more impactful investment and innovation. The digital economy thrives on entrepreneurship and innovation, given that a lot of our, or most of our the economies have relied on MSMEs as the biggest share in terms of business entities. Roundtable participants called for growing investments in impactful innovation to address urgent social and environmental challenges. There's much scope to align innovation with the developmental goals of the country and the region. When there is both policy momentum and investor interest, there can be both speed to scale and impact. However, impactful investment in innovation requires both sides to speak the same language. Traditional measures of the digital economy, such as size of investment, number of startups, gross merchandise value, or monthly transacting users are important, but are insufficient in capturing the impact of innovation and entrepreneurship on society. Other shared outcomes include metrics such as jobs created and other progress to sustainable development goals. And third, to cultivate not just a coordinated, but also a responsive and regulatory environment. Stakeholders acknowledge ASEAN's potential or the region's potential hinges upon the creation of a globally competitive and integrated single market. Regional cooperation, such as the current discussion on the ASEAN Digital Economy Framework Agreement, are important. However, the pace of technological change required a responsive regulatory environment informed by data, technology developments, research, and industry consultations. Hence, stakeholders gave equal weight to the importance of building a confident digital society if the digital economy is to enable progress for the region. A confident digital society may be described as an equitable, resilient, adaptive society in which all individuals may participate and benefit from digital transition. The priorities include just more than just developing digital infrastructure. It goes now into looking beyond into reliable, affordable access, reliable, affordable, and quality access, especially in remote areas or underserved communities. We saw how important the quality digital connectivity was during the COVID-19 pandemic. The lack of access impacted citizens beyond the commercial domain. So it included issues in education, healthcare, and public information. So key question here is that what does it mean to have quality digital access, not just mere access, and how do we enable it? Second, from enabling the digital literacy or building digital literacy, there were also higher conversations now to ensuring that this leads to meaningful and productive participation in the digital economy. This goes beyond digital literacy for safe adoption of technologies. For example, low-income youth in Singapore tend to spend more time online on social media and communication apps or entertainment apps. While they theoretically are digitally connected and digitally literate, they're not employing this connectivity to learn or increase employability. Stakeholders cited the inclusion paradox, in which online time and connectivity is spent in pursuit of leisure rather than research. This is known also as the invisible digital literacy. The question is, how are users using digital technologies to enable meaningful participation in the digital economy? As a first step, one of the things we heard was participants called for a focus on MSMEs and reskilling and upskilling programs. And finally, there was a recognition for a comprehensive review of productive work to enable sustainable and adaptive livelihoods in the future. Participants from our study foresaw significant changes in the length of one's productive life, so which would see more frequent disruptions due to technology, and also would be likely to extend far beyond today's typical retirement age. So they called for regular reviews of national skills roadmaps, an examination of norms of traditional employment, and an adaptive approach to learning and earning in a manner that is human-centered, environmentally sustainable, and economically viable over the long term. So that's the regional view. And in the last few minutes of my presentation, let me share specific points that were raised by the Filipino stakeholders during our roundtable discussion. The elements needed to foster a confident digital society for the Philippines included affordable quality access. This is particularly relevant to us in the Philippines because of the archipelagic nature of our country. Second was on the meaningful and productive participation in the digital economy. Stakeholders called for a national ICT skills roadmap to further develop the local digital talent through collaborative reskilling and upskilling by the government, by the private sector, by academic institutions, and the civil society. Participants particularly highlighted as well the need to extend capacity building beyond the capital cities and to realize a thriving digital economy from Batanes to Sulu. For sustainable and adaptive livelihoods, participants stressed outreach to traditionally marginalized groups such as the rural communities, underserved populations, to women, the elderly, and persons with disabilities. When we dove deeper into what would take for the digital economy to further contribute to the Philippines' growth and progress, innovation elements emerged very strongly. Stakeholders also highlighted the need for verified digital identities or digital ID for every Filipino as a foundational enabling technology to build trust in the digital economy. Another suggestion was for the government to consider or issue an accreditation mechanism to solution providers who met common standards for trustworthy digital products and services. To encourage impactful investment in innovation, stakeholders suggested developing grant programs to steer innovation towards solving the country's intractable challenges and sandbox initiatives to promote innovation while safeguarding the welfare of the public. And finally, stakeholders offered many ideas around how regulatory environment could be better coordinated and more responsive to emerging technologies and new business models. They called for evidence-based research to inform policymaking and establishing open communication channels for the public, private, and the people sectors to provide inputs into regulation. So I hope this quick summary of the Tech for Good Institute's research findings resonate with you and provides much fodder for your upcoming planning session. These are just some of the key issues we were hearing with regards to the digital economy and digitalization. And the full report is available on our website, and we'd love to have feedback and responses. And if anyone wants to know more about this piece of work and the other work the Tech for Good Institute does, please do reach out, and we would be delighted to arrange a time for conversation for this one. Thank you again to the organizers and the PASCAN for the invitation. Daghang salamat sa tanan, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keith Dutchers, Program Manager for Tech for Good Institute in Singapore, for going over the current state of digital transformation within the APEC region. I believe it's good news to hear that the Philippines is one of the fastest growing digital economies. So I hope we can keep it up. So we're now down to the final speaker for this morning. Our final speaker, who will also be presenting virtually, is Dr. Glazer Nino Vasquez, researcher at Policy Support Unit, APEC Secretariat. Dr. Vasquez has contributed to numerous APEC policy research and projects, including APEC regional trends analysis, structural reform, decarbonization, and just transition, and others. Previously, he served as a fellow at the Philippine Center for Economic Development, and his research has been published in peer-reviewed academic journals such as the Journal of Population Economics and the Philippine Journal of Science. He is an affiliate of the Global Labor Organization, and he holds a Doctor of Philosophy degree in economics from the UP School of Economics. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk about the emerging issues in the APEC region, let us give both an on-site and virtual round of applause to Dr. Glazer Nino Vasquez.
Magandang umaga and maayong buntag. Greetings from the APEC Policy Support Unit. A warm thank you, Dr. Lampagos, for your kind introduction. I want to express my gratitude to the organizers for inviting the APEC PSU in this forum. Today, my aim is to take you on a journey through key and emerging issues within APEC. We'll explore topics that hold importance for all of us as members of the Asia-Pacific community. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So before we delve into the core of emerging issues, let's take a moment to grasp the context that shapes our discussions, the APEC Putrajaya Vision 2040. While DG Punsalang and Yusek Hepti have touched upon this, it's important to emphasize the elements of this vision as we discuss the emerging issues. Ensuring our policy research aligns with this vision is important for steering the future course of APEC. The pivotal year 2020 marked the formal conclusion of the Bogor Goals, a focal point since 1994, dedicated to advancing free trade and investment in the Asia-Pacific region. Recognizing the evolving landscape, APEC policymakers ushered in a new era, introducing two pillars to APEC's vision. This forward-looking perspective is embodied in the APEC Putrajaya Vision 2040, setting priorities for the next 2 decades, emphasizing not only trade and investment, but also a commitment to quality growth that brings palpable benefits and greater health and well-being to all. Staying true to APEC's voluntary, non-binding, and consensus-building principles, our journey towards this vision rests on 3 economic drivers. First is the trade and investment pillar. The second pillar is innovation and digitalization. Third, we have strong, balanced, secure. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. That one. Can we go back to the 4th slide?
Hi everyone. Hello, Dr. Glaser. So we're just facing like a little bit of technical difficulty, so we'll be back online in 1 minute. Thank you.
All right. All right.
Hello, Dr. Glaser. So we're back online, so you could proceed with your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So can we proceed to the slides on statistics? That one. So as we delve into today's discussions, it is important to position APEC within the global context and discuss the latest key statistics in the region. APEC serves as a premier regional economic forum, bringing together 21 Pacific Rim member economies. In 2022, the APEC region, home to approximately 2.96 billion people, constituted 37% of the global population. Economically, it showcased substantial strength, contributing a nominal GDP of $62 trillion, representing 62% of the global GDP. Further, its role in international trade was significant, accounting for about 47% of global trade in goods and commercial services in the same year. Next slide, please. In my presentation today, much of the insights will be drawn from the APEC Regional Trends Analysis, commonly known as ARTA. The ARTA is a serial publication of the APEC Policy Support Unit, which provides an overview of the region's economy through an analysis of recent macroeconomic trade and investment trends. In addition, the ARTA also discusses risks and opportunities to the region's economic outlook, as well as key and emerging issues in APEC. Next slide, please. A key challenge discussed in the latest version of ARTA is economic slowdown. APEC finds itself walking a tightrope marked by various risks. Despite an anticipated growth of 3.3% in 2023, the region is confronted with a spectrum of challenges, including the lasting impacts of the pandemic, stubborn inflation, elevated debt levels, climate change concerns, and geo-economic fragmentation, all of which loom over APEC's future. Amid these challenges, there exist potential avenues for growth. such as the sustained strength in tourism and consumption, coupled with continued targeted fiscal support. Looking ahead to 2024 and the medium term, APEC's growth is anticipated to stabilize within a range of 2.8 to 2.9%, although at a pace relatively slower than the global average. The prevailing economic uncertainties further complicate endeavors towards a firmer post-pandemic recovery. Next slide, please. Trade downturn is another concern. In the first half of 2023, merchandise trade experienced a contraction. Both the volume and value of exports saw a year-on-year decline of 3% and 6.5% respectively. Imports, reflecting a more pronounced descent, decreased by 3.5% in volume and 7.1% in value during the same period. The tightening of monetary conditions, responding to stubborn inflationary pressures, coupled with global uncertainties, cast a shadow over trade activity. In line with the global trade outlook, APEC expects sluggish trade in 2023, with the volume of merchandise trade, exports, and imports growing by only 0.1% and 0.3% respectively. Next slide, please. Navigating supply chain strategies presents a unique challenge, the trade-off between resilience and efficiency. Pursuing resilience is not without its costs, compelling businesses to carefully evaluate the trade-off between ensuring long-term security and maximizing short-term profits. An additional layer of complexity is introduced when considering the implementation of redundancies. That is, holding precautionary stocks of inputs and finished products or diversifying suppliers. While these practices enhance resilience, their perceived inefficiency, driven by higher costs and potential delays in recovery, further complicates decision-making. Improving visibility and embracing resilience in supply chains also necessitates various barriers, including hardware, software. For small and medium-sized firms, emphasizes the need for a meticulous balancing act as businesses navigate the intricate landscape of supply chain adjustments. Resilience is costly. There's a trade-off between long-term resilience versus short-term profits. Next slide, please. Geoeconomic fragmentation is another concern. Geoeconomic fragmentation involves the increasing economy into distinct blocks influenced by geopolitical preferences. This trend raises concerns about its potential to erode the historically associated benefits of globalization and trade liberalization. The immediate fallout of increased trade costs resulting from trade restrictive policies such as tariffs and non-tariff measures is a reduction in trade. Geoeconomic fragmentation could also affect FDI flows. Data from FDI markets reveal a gradual decline in Chinese market share in FDI projects. While China held 49.1% of the market share in 2003, this figure plummeted to below 10% between January and July 2022. Further, the potential ramifications of geoeconomic fragmentation extend beyond reduced FDI and trade flows. The scenario may lead to substantial output losses, diminished employment opportunities, and declines in productivity gains due to constraints on technology and knowledge transfers. Next slide, please. In addition, the increase in debt levels poses a significant challenge, especially during an economic slowdown. As economies face tougher economic times, higher debt level becomes a limiting factor, constraining economies' ability to manage finances effectively. In 2022, for example, there was a notable surge in general gross debt, reaching elevated levels. For advanced economies, the debt soared to 112% of their total economic output. In the case of the APEC region, debt level reached 65% of the total GDP, marking the highest level ever recorded. This heightened debt situation creates additional hurdles for governments in navigating economic challenges and implementing effective fiscal policies. Next slide, please. The future of trade in the APEC region is under threat due to the increasing accumulation of trade restrictive measures. Recent data reveal that while trade facilitating measures still outnumber trade restrictive ones in APEC, the accumulated number of trade restrictive measures has been steadily rising. As of October 2023, it has reached a concerning 480. Additionally, there is a growing presence of trade remedies with approximately 933 in force in APEC, primarily consisting of anti-dumping measures and countervailing duties. These escalating numbers of trade restrictive measures and remedies raise significant concerns. They have a detrimental impact on trade flows, affecting a growing number of goods in the region. This trend poses challenges to the overall trajectory of trade in APEC, emphasizing the need for careful consideration and proactive measures to address these threats. Next slide, please. Inequality is another challenge. The pandemic has significantly impacted living standards across many APEC economies, with lockdowns and social distancing measures leading to job and income losses. A concerning outcome of this crisis is the exacerbation of inequality in the APEC region. The bottom 50% of the population experienced a decrease in their share of net personal wealth, while the top 10% and the top 1% saw their shares increase marginally. Vulnerabilities in the bottom 50% were exacerbated by factors like informality conditions and limited resources or knowledge to access the children from less affluent households with insufficient educational resources and limited access to digital devices or the internet for online learning have widened gaps in educational attainment. Addressing these disparities remains a crucial challenge. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The looming threat of a severe El Niño weather phenomenon could have profound impacts on prices and economic prospects. This weather phenomenon, characterized by droughts, heat waves, floods, and wildfires, affects prices in two ways. First, it may negatively impact crop yields while simultaneously increasing demand for energy products due to reduced outputs from hydroelectric power plants. This could result in higher global commodity prices for both food and fuel. Second, infrastructure damage caused by El Niño could elevate prices of construction materials. Disruptions in supply chains, a consequence of extreme weather conditions, might further contribute to increased prices for affected products. Historically, severe El Niño events have been detrimental to economic growth. Notably, the 1982 to 1983 and 1997 to 1998 El Niño episodes were associated with global GDP losses amounting to approximately 4.1 trillion US dollars and 5.7 trillion US dollars respectively. Next slide, please. Looking ahead, one of the major challenges in the APEC region is shifting demographics. We are seeing a notable increase in the elderly population, with the percentage of people aged 65 and above almost doubling in 3 decades, from 6.8% in 1991 to 13.2% in 2021. Northeast Asia, for example, has experienced a significant rise, with its elderly population more than doubling from 7% to 15% during the same period. Adding to this, the number of young people aged 0 to 14 has gone down in APEC, dropping from 28% to 19% over the same time frame. This shift in demographics poses various challenges. In the long term, having more elderly people means higher costs for healthcare, pensions, and social security. It also means a smaller workforce, which can lead to shortages of skills and economic slowdown. Additionally, with low birth rates and a smaller youth population, workers will face a greater responsibility in supporting the growing elderly population in this changing landscape. Next slide, please. Carbon dioxide equivalent emissions in APEC have surged by over 1.8 times, climbing from 13.7 billion tons in 1990 to 25.2 billion tons in 2022. The primary culprit is energy-related emissions, accounting for a substantial 88% of APEC's total emissions, stemming from the consumption of oil, gas, and coal for various combustion activities. APEC's impact on global emissions has also grown, rising from 58% in 1990 to a peak of 65% in 2020. Although there was a slight dip to 64% in 2022, The overall trend indicates a significant contribution to the world's greenhouse gas output. Next slide, please. My key takeaway is that in the current landscape, APEC grapples a range of challenges, yet within these challenges, opportunities for collaborative solutions and innovative strategies emerge across the 21 diverse member economies. By harnessing evidence-based policy research, nurturing regional cooperation, and aligning with the APEC Putrajaya Vision 2040, we can skillfully navigate the complexities ahead, paving the way for an open, dynamic, resilient, and peaceful Asia-Pacific community. Thank you so much, and maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Dr. Vasquez. We apologize for the technical glitch from our end, but we're very happy that you've handled it very well. So let me call on now our discussant this morning to synthesize the presentations from the four speakers today. We have with us this morning Assistant Secretary Reynaldo R. Cancio. My apologies, sir, if I mispronounced your name. From the National Economic and Development Authority. He obtained bachelor's degree in business economics and Master of Arts in economics, both from the University of the Philippines School of Economics. He also studied a doctoral program in economics with 45 units from the UP School of Economics. He used to work as a senior economist in European Union delegation to the Philippines for 15 years. He wrote main papers such as competition policy and legislation in the Philippines, government procurement in the Philippines, and then customs reform in the Philippines. He attended local international trainings from the United Nations, International Monetary Fund, and the European Commission and Asia-Europe Foundation. May I call on now Assistant Secretary Ronaldo R. Cancio. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone, and I'd like to thank the organizers, our friends from PIDS, Dr. Babe Sorbeta, for inviting us to this event. I'm not going to try and summarize the discussion. I'd just like to give a share to thoughts from our end on what's been said so far. A lot of it, of course, is in line also with our thinking in terms of what we've laid out as priorities in the Philippine Development Plan, where we are focusing on economic and social transformation for a prosperous, inclusive, and resilient society, focusing in particular on three objectives. One is developing and protecting capabilities of individuals and families, particularly through promoting human and social development, reducing vulnerabilities, and protecting the purchasing power of families, as well as increasing their income earning ability. The second is this transforming productive sectors to generate more quality jobs and competitive products by modernizing agriculture, revitalizing industry, and reinvigorating services, including through promotion of greater trade and investments, which of course particularly relevant for what we're discussing today. And of course, all that will be underpinned by creating a conducive, supportive environment in terms of governance, macroeconomic stability, peace and security, upgrading our infrastructure, accelerating climate action, strengthening disaster resilience. Now, as part of our duty to not just craft the plan, but also to monitor its implementation, we are on an annual basis doing a Philippine Development Report. So I'd just like to share some of the issues that we are also monitoring, which actually are similar to some of the issues that have already been raised here. And I think these are issues that we should be thinking about both in inside government, in the academy, and perhaps this is where the network can also help government think through these issues, whether these are things that we can take up, have greater cooperation in terms of the APEC. Let me just see if I can get my notes. Yeah, so in general, of course, APEC's objective is to help improve the flow of goods, services, and people in the region, right? So one area where we could be cooperating more, we think, is in terms of enhancing food security. One threat we are seeing is that there are, apart from the recent episode of public health emergency or the pandemic that we saw, that there are also threats of animal and crop diseases spreading. No, it's already happening in several countries. If we don't address this, this is something that could spread further globally and disrupt food supplies. No? So is there scope for greater cooperation on those issues, animal and crop diseases, no, addressing the typical reaction also of some source countries when there are shocks, well, the reaction would sometimes be in terms of export bans. So how can we cooperate so that we don't further disrupt those supplies through those measures? In terms of the labor market, well, migration, we've seen a strong recovery in the past 11 months. I think OFW deployment has already hit 2 million from January to November this year. So clearly the demand from overseas is coming back for our workers. This, of course, a long tradition of us sending out our workers, health workers, no, construction workers, engineers, seafarers. Certainly for us, there's an interest to cooperate with these recipient countries in terms of, for instance, social protection for our workers. No? So how can we work together so that there's greater portability of the social protection benefits that they get overseas? No? So that when they come back, they are better protected. Issue that perhaps APEC economies could be working together on. Tourism is another big issue, of course, for us. APEC economies are one of the major sources of our tourists. They're also big destinations themselves. So what can we do together in terms of not just facilitating the movement of these tourists, but also ensuring greater sustainability in this industry, you know, things like what lessons they've learned in terms of implementing ecotourism, etc. In the energy sector, this was also mentioned by a number of speakers. We've, of course, implemented in the sector. That's another area where the various economies will be given the technologies that they've developed in this area, also on their experience, also in terms of regulations. No, how can we work together on that? Also in the development of the EV market, we clearly there's some improvement in terms of interest there. I think in the first quarter of this year, there was a six-fold increase in the sales of electric vehicles. So there is growing interest in that. But one critical challenge, of course, is this anxiety in terms of range. The infrastructure, the charging infrastructure is not there yet. So that's one of the things that's holding it back. At the same time, investments in those infrastructure it's not forthcoming because they don't see that, that there's enough market yet. No? So there's a clear coordination problem there that government, various APEC governments perhaps have confronted, and there may be lessons that we can share with each other and how it can be resolved. EPR, we've just recently passed a law on extended producer responsibility. This is also something that other APEC economies has done, and there could be scope for us to learn from how they've implemented this and made it actually work. There have been a number of references to issues on technologies, including AI. we can expect that in the coming years, there'll be faster, better AI models out there, and the adoption by the private sector is also going to pick up. But regulation needs to catch up, no, to these fast changes in technology. In some APEC economies, they're already thinking about regulation in terms of how AI can be developed and used. So again, there can be scope for us to discuss how that should be done. No? Digitization also mentioned several times. As you know, we have amended the Public Services Act, and this is now allowing 100% for investments in key areas like telecoms to support reforms in that area it imposes performance standards or requires government to impose performance standards on these public utilities, public services now, as they are referred to. And again, this is something that the APEC economies could be working on, sharing their experiences, how they implement those kinds of standards. In the environment and climate policy area, carbon pricing is another issue. We have now seeing that some jurisdictions are, for instance, adopting carbon border adjustment mechanisms, and there are other APEC economies that are thinking along the same lines. So again, this is something the network could look into. How is this going to impact the Philippines? How should we be reacting to these kinds of developments in terms of regulations? Lastly, there was also some reference to ESG. Just recently, the International Sustainability Standards Board has already rolled out two global standards for ESG. Basically, coming up with the basic information that the firms need to disclose to investors about the risks and opportunities that they are facing for the short, medium, and long term. And then there's another one basically that prescribes specific climate-related disclosure requirements. No, so again, I think these kinds of issues would benefit from greater discussion and cooperation within APEC, and this is something that the network could look into, and including in terms of the standard setting, implementation, also including in terms of certification systems and their experience in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assistant Secretary Cancio. May I call back again Assistant Secretary Cancio to please come forward and take one of the seats behind me. Also, Director General Punsalang and Undersecretary Hepti to please join us in front. We'll start now with the open forum. So the floor is open now for questions from the on-site participants. And for those who have joined us through Zoom and Facebook Live, kindly type in your questions so that our team here can monitor and can send them to me for reading. Right? Any question from the audience? Just an icebreaker. Last night, when I was being briefed by Ms. Jean, she said that one of the responsibilities of the moderator is to prepare questions in case there are none from the audience. And I told her, thankfully, I'm going to be in the room with good friends and former colleagues from PIDS, like Dr. Joe Piap, Dr. Graves Obera, and Dr. Peng Ballesteros. So I told them, if there are no questions from the audience, I might as well call them. Oh, yes, we still have a question. Please identify your name, the institution, and the speaker you want to address your question to.
Morning. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me? George Manzano is my name from University of Asia and the Pacific. Thank you very much for all your for sharing your insights about directions for APEC. And my question usually is, we've talked about a lot of that, open and free trade regimes offer a lot of investments, especially from the demand side. However, looking at our own backyard, it's mainly, I think, a lot of supply side issues, our ability to scale up our exports. And my question here, because we have many new initiatives, digital, then diversity, what is the role of industrial policy for in the Philippine context in light of these new developments? Thank you.
Number one from our panelists.
Thank you, Sir George, for that. Actually, I would say that a very important question, especially if the country is gearing towards not just industrialization, but basically finding its needs in the knowledge and creative economy. And I think a developing country like the Philippines, I mean, industry development is really one primary considerations. And that's, I would say, one of the challenges that we are facing right now, especially if you are going to basically juxtapose the trade performance in the trading goods, for example. So you have noticed that for decades, the Philippines has been in deficit. So the question there is, of course, do we produce enough goods? Do we manufacture high value products that would basically uh, give us surplus when it comes to traded goods? So I think that's one big question. But of course, in the recent trend right now, you will note that Philippines has been finding its own niche as we move forward. So maybe from the agricultural stage, industrialization, knowledge, creative economy. And now what we have noted is that in the region, basically one big niche of the country is on our electronics industry. So this is, I would say, um, a niche that we should not only maintain, but also further improve. And the future is promising because with the current trends right now on digitalization, AI, for example, and of course, knowledge economy for that matter, then the relevance of industry in the electronics sector would be vital for the Philippines to improve its performance in the region. So if you will note, there are many policy and also programs interventions that have been made recently. One is, of course, the innovation agenda. Second is, of course, the establishment of our National AI Research Center. We have forged more partnerships with other trading and investment partners so that we can develop not just in product development or rather participate in product development, but also collaborate or R&D. So basically the trajectory is towards that. And then also, smart agriculture is also one area that we are looking at. That's why we are working closely with other trading partners, particularly those who have developed a niche in the agricultural sector. So recently, I came from Hungary, and Hungary is one European country who is very much interested also to collaborate with us. So, in other words, the goal or the direction is for the country to really find its comparative advantage in the region. And process of assessing maybe our economic performance, one thing that also you would like to highlight is that, of course, in the analysis, you should not just focus on the trade in goods aspect. There's also the trade in services aspect, which is very vital for the Philippines. In fact, more than 60% of our GDP is coming from the services sector. So this is one sector that we should focus on also, because we have a big comparative advantage compared to other Southeast Asian countries. And in line with that, bear with me if I will also highlight the fact that we have a big advantage in our young and dynamic workforce. So you can just imagine you have a median age of 25.3 years. And more than the fact that we have young and dynamic workforce, I mean, these are highly skilled, also professionals. I always emphasize in my talk that when they talk about the Philippines, they should also realize that we are reliable and good partners when it comes to R&D, for example. And there are many sectors that we were able also to make a mark. Like, for example, you talk about startup innovation in Silicon Valley, you will not know it, but there are many Filipinos who made a mark there. And if I may share, in fact, when I was still at the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, I also read in one article that in the survey conducted on the brains of Silicon Valley, Philippines was ranked number 6. So what I'm just saying is that there are many sectors, subsectors where Philippines can develop and enhance our comparative advantages. And also lastly, on the aspect of investment, I think investment really is one, I would say, big offensive interest that we should push. We really have to encourage more investments in the country, particularly on greenfield investments. I mean, FDIs. We're talking here of FDIs. So not just capital investments, but FDIs so that our manufacturing sector, for that matter, can further develop, or I would say catch up in the process. And in the manufacturing sector, sir, maybe one thing that I can share to you is that if you will check the data, starting 2015, we have observed good improvement when it comes to the growth of the manufacturing sector. In fact, from 2015 until the pandemic, at the average, we're hitting around 6% in the growth rate in our manufacturing sector. In fact, there are even subsectors hitting two-digit growth. So I would say that the policy interventions, the program interventions are slowly, contributing to this development. Of course, we were faced with the pandemic, but hopefully, I mean, these sectors and subsectors can eventually catch up. So that's all, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just try to add a few thoughts on that. Well, yes, we of course are interested, and I know in the economics field, the thinking on this issue has evolved over time. There was a period where this uh, issue we had not so very good experience ourselves a couple of decades back when we tried this. But of course, things have evolved since then. No? The institutions have changed. We have more interagency mechanisms to check on each other. There are now institutional mechanisms also for greater private sector participation, so that we don't fall into the same trap as we did before, no? Where some of these policies got captured and we ended up with very inward-looking policies, no? I would say we're not quite there yet. We've introduced these mechanisms, these checks and balances, but I don't think we're in a position where we're not comfortable so that we can be more an activist government in terms of directing industry in a more forceful manner. No, I think For now, we're trying to find that balance where it's a bit more market-led, but with some government guidance, shifting a bit away from just very general sector-wide interventions to shifting a bit more into more granular interventions, even in fact more firm-specific interventions. In fact, the PEDP talks about going out to specific firms in terms of coaching, mentoring, etc. No, but I think it's a process, no, for us to get more comfortable and in relying on the wisdom of both the government and the private sector and where to bring the economy. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just follow up on that question on the supply side challenges. And I think maybe perhaps this question is addressed, I can address this to Mr. Punsalang. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the logistical challenges, the movement of goods and services were really problematic, in terms of promoting business growth within the Asia Pacific Economic Region. So my question now is, have there been any conversation or discussions across governments within the APEC region about how to deal with such challenges should another event similar to the COVID-19 pandemic were to happen? And then so that you can, even though if such an event occurs again in the future, and it's possible that it will, countries in the region are better prepared to handle these challenges.
Yes, thank you for that question. As you will notice in my presentation, there was a lot, the matter of supply. Yeah, the matter of supply chain resiliency was brought up again and again. In fact, it's one of the focus of all the APEC economies due to the pandemic itself, the height of the pandemic, as well as lingering problems with supply chains. And it's because of this that they actually encouraged in the supply chain resiliency in the declaration, in the Golden Gate declarations. Another thing is with regards to IPEF, Indo-Pacific Economic Forum, as mentioned by Undersecretary Hefty, we concluded the Pillar 2 agreement, and included there is a committee, a body was formed to study future effects of disasters, pandemics, and other contingencies on supply chain resilience, as well as how to address them. So it was incorporated already in IPEP, and that Pillar 2, in fact, Pillar 2 is supply, right? Supply chains. So it was in itself, it's already a separate agreement, supply chain resilience. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Any more? Sure.
Maybe if I can just add, well, of course, our experience during the pandemic, I would say is a bit of a wake-up call when it comes to trade and investment policy. So right now, to prepare for, hopefully not, no, it will not happen again. But I mean, for future challenges like that, basically supply chain resilience is one aspect that every economy is now talking about. And as mentioned by DG Ponsalang, under the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, Pillar 2 is on supply chain resilience. So basically, more than supply diversification, it's very important that partner economies would have access to certain information with respect to capacity and also the demand of its economies. I think data is very important so that the situation where every economy would as a knee-jerk reaction, immediately impose trade restrictions because you don't have any enough information to basically calculate whether or not you will face shortage, or maybe you have as a surplus also when it comes to certain essential goods. Number two is the realization that at the end of the day, you have to keep your market open. So given that we are already in a globalized world, so it's very important that our businesses must continue to, of course, operate in the process. And third, digitalization is also one thing that was intensified during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think that's one big solution also that we have to enhance in the future. Because at the end of the day, many transactions have been done and in fact concluded in the process through the internet and other internet platforms. So basically, those are the policy interventions that we're looking at.
Thank you, Mr. Hepti. Any more questions from the audience? Yes, we have a couple. Please identify yourself and your institution. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, everyone. I'm Lawrence Daquique from De La Salle University. What I have is an academic concern. So I think it was only Dr. Vasquez who mentioned about income inequality emerging as one of the challenges in 2024. I'm trying to understand what APEC is doing when it comes to setting up mechanisms for addressing inequality, because inequality is a byproduct of trade, and there is in-country inequality, and then there is inequality created because of the trading activities, because of the policies imposed. And then in the Philippines, we have high inequality. It doesn't go down. Then it's really persistent. And I really would like to know whether the governments involved in APEC are quite serious or in setting up mechanism to address inequality caused by this arrangement. So I know I don't know if you're prepared to answer that, but I think it's especially now we have digitalization initiatives. They also create their versions of inequality, and that to me is an interesting question. It's because as we progress, we also need to be mindful of the lower 10% or the lower bottom 30% in our respective economies. So it's also your answers, of course, would inform our research initiatives, because I think we need to understand how trade flows would affect inequality outcomes in individual countries and how individual countries can better coordinate with others in terms of setting up mechanisms that will allow them also to recover from the ill effects of inequality. So it's just an academic concern po, and I'm really grateful for the answers that you will provide.
Yes, thank you for your question. Actually, it was tackled quite very extensively during the San Francisco round of APEC, no? And this also goes way back. But in the San Francisco round, there was also an emphasis on inclusiveness. And when you say inclusiveness, of course, there's gender equality, the role of women. Also, they recognize the income disparity that women, it's not commensurate to their contribution in society. But also, they mentioned the marginalized groups. What are these marginalized groups? Precisely these people who do not earn enough by virtue of their maybe their status in life. They need upskilling, or they live in outlying areas where development has not reached them. And one of the tools to address this is actually interconnectedness, also digitalization. If you go to the provinces, well, if you go to many of the provinces and outlying areas, you will see that many, even those who we consider poor, they already have cell phones actually. So in that sense, they're already connected to the internet. What they need is actually upskilling. How can they use the internet? And that was also tackled. It was mentioned explicitly. Now you have to understand that APEC, their declaration is aspirational and it's non-binding. No, most of the time it's non-binding. The reason for this is so that leaders could gather informally in a relaxed atmosphere and confidently mention solutions to crisis rather than have a formal discussion, let's say, let's say, agreeing on tariff negotiations agreements, because they will be constrained. And out of that, all of these solutions came. So there are concrete, and another thing is the legislature, they take their legislative bodies in all APEC economies. They take their cues from the outcome documents of APEC, like the leaders' declaration, and they try to incorporate these views in APEC into their laws. So that's one way of a major way of addressing poverty, income inequality. And if you go way, way back, we also have to attract foreign investment. In fact, this also contributes to sustainability. But of course, more work has to be done. The fruits of investment development have to reach down to the grassroots. But I'm of the firm belief that access to the global economy through interconnectedness, digitalization is the way to go, because it will introduce them to concepts they were not management of let's say businesses upskilling that they weren't familiar before. And also energy security was also mentioned. So, well, I'm very glad that already the Philippines has gone in a big way to promoting renewable energy. I mean, we already allowed 100% foreign ownership in the renewable energy sector. And after that, there was really in a big way, a lot of investments coming in, mostly coming in from our local conglomerates. I mean, you have Enrique Rason. He plans to install the biggest solar power plant in the world, 3.5 gigawatts. So also others, Ayala, ASEN, also they do. So in just by next year, in just 3 years, we'll double already our output of solar energy. But this has to reach the remote areas. I mean, given the archipelagic nature of our country, that's one major disadvantage. You also need access to energy and digitalization. This goes hand in hand. And I think despite some bumps, I think we will reach it, because look, I like to cite the BPO industry as an example. When they allowed foreign ownership, it started from virtually nothing into what it is today. It's already at 35, at least by next year, $35 billion industry. And I'm optimistic when they think that this thing will also happen with our energy sector. And mind you, the energy I can speak from experience. When I'm assigned abroad, one of our roles is economic diplomacy. And investors are always mentioning to me the foreign equity restrictions, 60-40. Ownership to foreigners only limited to 40%. Another is the electricity rates, which is actually one of the highest in Asia. Now, if we've already, at least in two crucial economies like the BPO and in the energy sector, we've already removed the foreign equity restriction. That can bring in a lot of foreign investments. I mean, to cite again the BPO industry, we have already, I think, 1.5 billion full-time employees. Now, depending on whom you ask, the multiplier effect of that is 5 to 7 or even 8 additional employment generated. So that's also our way to alleviate poverty. And this is already they already diversified to the countryside. It's not just a Manila phenomenon anymore. They're going to Cebu, they're going to Bohol, they're going to Dumaguete. They went, of course, to Davao and other next second or third tier cities. All of these developments are not just in isolation, but they also get their indirectly, their inspiration indirectly from APEC, the ease of doing business. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
If I may, I'll just add to the responses of DG Ponsolang. Well, of course, if you will observe right now, there are many policy and program interventions being done to address income inequality, not only at the domestic level, but even at the regional and multilateral level. So not just here in the Philippines, in APEC, ASEAN, and of course, even WTO. One is, of course, what they call inclusive policy. So when you talk about inclusive growth and development, basically we're talking that no one should be left behind. That's why elements that are being discussed right now, as mentioned, would be trade and gender, and even trade and indigenous peoples. And that covers marginalized or underrepresented. So that's one. Of course, if you will note in APEC, policies are all now focused on people. So people-centered policies. So if you will note the transition from APEC before, the focus was more on trade liberalization and investment liberalization. And then you have facilitation, trade facilitation, and economic cooperation. Now it's more on resilience, sustainability agenda, and of course, inclusive growth. So you will see the shift. And then, of course, it's very important that we have to address this not just at the domestic level, but also regionally, because being poor in the Philippines is far different from being poor in the United States. So that's why it's very important that you have to factor in also not just the income inequality, but of course the cost of living, the affordability of basic commodities and essential goods for that matter. So that's very important. Another point is, of course, digitalization, because digitalization empowers micro, small, and medium enterprises and even the marginalized. This is so because you will note that in the past, I mean, the four factors of production, I mean, if you have land, labor, capital, management, basically you can establish your own business empire if you have those four factors of production. But because of technology, digitalization, you can revolutionize industries. And that's what happened to many startup companies. So right now, very important to establish a stable and predictable rules when it comes to navigating digital environment, because that's very important, because rules, just like digitalizations, they are also, I would say, one great equalizer among us. Yan po.
Okay, let me just bring in to the discussion our two online speakers. And I have one question for perhaps both of them can share their insights. Digital transformation is driven by many factors, including the desire for efficiency, competitive advantage, and customer satisfaction, enabling businesses to evolve and adapt to the changing business environment. Now, artificial intelligence plays a big role here, as AI acts as a leverage to enhance efficiency and productivity by automating mundane and repetitive tasks, allowing human employees to focus more complex and creative aspects in their jobs. So I would like to hear from Dr. Vasquez and Mr. Detros. What do you see as the potential long-term repercussion of digital transformation in the economy in terms of promoting employment in labor surplus economies in the region like the Philippines?
Thank you, Dr. Lampagos. Maybe I also just address a few questions on the previous discussions on income inequality, for example. So I support as well the questions, the answers of our speakers, especially Yusek Hepti, in terms of the importance of digitalization. And there are three key components that I would like to highlight. One is the meaningful and participation in the digital economy to be able to bridge the income inequality gap. So more than just the digital literacy, it is essential that we ensure na the people who are using digital technologies are using them for more productive gains. Last week or 2 weeks ago, in Jakarta, during the start of the negotiations for the Digital Economy Framework Agreement, we heard a lot of talk about the private sector being willing to partner with the governments in terms of trying to do public-private partnership in terms of skilling and upskilling, especially the marginalized people. The digital economy companies have their own platforms, and they're also an opportunity there to actually push out bite-sized content through your apps, as well as information about digitalization and how it can be able to use, or how can it enable productive and sustainable livelihoods. Second, I'll just also would want to highlight the importance of the startups and the digital ecosystem. We've heard also the discussions about the Silicon Valley model for the Philippines. Pero one of the more interesting things that I've heard while talking to stakeholders in the region, or especially in the Philippines, there was asking for a fit-for-purpose approach, especially in the Philippines. So rather than Silicon Valley, sabi nila, why not let's create our own Sinigang Valley, where our innovation are responsive towards the needs and developmental goals of the Philippines. So that's access towards mentors, money, and markets that all our startups will have, so that they can also bridge that gap towards income inequality. And the thing with startups is that they can operate not only in capital cities, but they are also be able to, assuming that there is enough digital infrastructure, they can also reach far-flung communities. And finally, on the digital literacy aspect of the inequality, one of our studies at the Tech for Good Institute noted that more than digital literacy, there's also it needs to be combined with other components such as financial literacy. This is an example for the digital financial services. For in the Philippines, for example, we've seen an uptick in terms of the adoption of digital financial services. Maya, for example, had grown from 600,000 users in 2016 to around 50 million by 2022. So currently, the use of this digital financial services is still dominated by e-payments. But digital financial services is more than just e-payments. Meron pang lending, remittance, insurance, investments. And these other sectors can also unlock economic opportunities and deepen the engagement of digital consumers. So they can bridge that inequality gap. So to move beyond these payments, I think we also need to think about the financial literacy components so that they understand not only, so that non-e-wallet products such as insurance, investments, and loans can be used as well by those who are coming online, by people, especially for the first time. So the inequality, it's meaningful participation of the digital economy, the startups, especially making it fit for purpose for our country. And finally is adding financial literacy to our digital literacy initiatives. Maybe that's also a possible research area for the network. What's the level of financial literacy and how does it affect the digital financial services? In terms of AI, in the Philippines, AI is still a nascent technology, and I think ChatGPT has reached over 100 million subscribers in just 2 months. It took Facebook almost 4.5 years to reach the same number of people. There are a lot of discussions in about how to use AI safely, as well as ensure that regulatory responses are in place. In Singapore, for example, Singapore has just launched a generative AI sandbox. So this allows the governments to understand the technology more, but at the same time do regulatory learning so that applicable and appropriate measures can be implemented. There's caution in terms, we've seen caution in terms of adoption of AI, especially in government services, but at the same time in rollout and deployment, which also affects adoption within the digitalization. So those are just my two thoughts from the two previous discussions that we have. Thank you so much.
Would you like to share something, Dr. Vasquez?
Yes, the issue of inequality is intricately tied to the concept of inclusion. And referring to the APEC Putrajaya Vision 2040, the commitment to achieving strong, balanced, secure, sustainable, and inclusive, the word inclusive is there, sets the stage for addressing inequality. For example, a key component of the third pillar emphasizes resilience to shocks and crises by fostering quality growth that benefits everyone. So by saying that it benefits everyone, leaders have emphasized the importance of inclusion, including traditionally marginalized groups like SMEs, women, and others with untapped economic potential. So the wording untapped economic potential is already present in the Leaders' Declaration in the APEC Putrajaya Vision 2040. And this is a significant step towards addressing inequality. Another component underscores the importance of inclusive human resource development and economic and technical cooperation. This aspect of the vision is closely connected to enhancing social capital like education. And as DG Punsalang highlighted, the Leaders' Declaration holds weight. Why? Because it can influence the formulation of domestic policies in member economies. And USIC HEPI's emphasis on a people-centered approach is very evident, particularly in forums like the 2023 APEC Multi-Stakeholder Forum in San Francisco, where diverse stakeholders came together to shape inclusive policies regarding just transition. So I also agree with Mr. Detro's point on the digitalization and bridging the gap. The vision recognizes the transformative impact of digital technology in fostering inclusion. In fact, the second pillar of the APEC Putrajaya Vision 2040 is innovation and digitalization. And by intensifying inclusive human resource development, APEC aims to equip individuals, including, again, marginalized groups with the skills needed for the digital economy. So thank you.
Thank you. I've been advised that we're running out of time, but perhaps we can entertain one more question from our online participants. No online participants, okay. One final question before we wrap up.
Good morning, Wawi Tejero from Siliman University. I'd like to address my question to Director General Punsalang. A while ago, you presented that environment, climate change, including ocean conservation, has become part of the expanded scope of APEC. In 2021-2022, the Negros Oriental, the ocean of Negros Oriental facing Bohol Strait and right in front of Siliman University campus was at risk because of the 174 hectare reclamation for a 23 billion smart city project between our city government and a private institution allegedly based in China. So my question is, what is the take of the APEC National Secretariat? Perhaps has there been discussions, perhaps technical assistance to a PSA member institution facing this kind of issues? Because we know that the fight continues, even if the MOU was put on hold because of the pressures from the communities, from the environmentalists, from member institutions with Siliman University at the forefront. And we want to see a total ban of reclamation projects or activities and see a more environment-friendly policies that can be put in place.
Director General Punsalang.
Well, we don't have a representative from the ENR here to explain that. But I will try to answer your question because so when you talk about sustainability, it's not just economic sustainability, it's also environmental. And that was brought up in APEC. We want development to be in such a way that it is sustainable so that future generations will benefit from it. And also, the issue of maritime pollution was extensively addressed. Like I said, APEC is it's already evolving from purely economic matters to social and even cultural issues. Okay. And be that as it may, they are addressing the issue of environmental degradation through their declarations. Okay. And these declarations, the policy implementers or those who make policy take their cue on how this will be implemented. APEC as a rule do not go into specifics. Their statements are aspirational, but they carry weight because they are backed by the leaders of these economies, by the presidents, the prime ministers. So, in effect, it's like informal marching orders to the countries, to the governments of these respective economies. That these are the guidelines. These are, in effect, the mandates, informal how they are. So let's get on with the work. With regards to what you're addressing, specific issues, this would, well, like I said, this is very specific. No? So it would be best if DNR approach these things. But environmental degradation is definitely in APAC's radar and is being addressed through these outcome documents. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time, as is the case in conferences. We have more questions from the audience, but we're just going to wrap it up here. I would like to thank our speakers this morning, Director General Pinsalan, Under Secretary Hetty, Program Manager Keith Detros, and our researcher from the APEC Secretariat, Dr. Vasquez, and our discussant this morning, Assistant Secretary Cancio. Thank you also for those who have asked questions. But now turn over the floor to Ms. Jean Paris Carlos for some final thoughts, final messages.
So thank you, Dr. Relampagos, DG Punsalan, Yusek Happy, Keith and Glacier, and of course ASEC Cancio. So the award certificate of appreciation, may I call on Dr. Aniceto C. Orbeta Jr. and Dr. Francis Mark Kimba to be in front. So the first certificate will be awarded to DG Marcos Punsalan. So thank you, sir. Thank you. So, Yusek Hefty, please. It's your, please. Last for the on-site participant, to Dr. Julius Relampagos for moderating this morning session. We would also like to flash the certificate for Mr. Keith and Sir Glacier. So now may I call on Dr. Orbeta, Dr. Kimba, and the rest of the panel to stand in the middle for the photo opportunity. Email. So now may I request all participants to join in the photo opportunity so before we have lunch po. So meron pong isang ano po dito, may isang line din. We can join in din po sa taas po. Opo. So si Sasa po yung director natin ng photo. Sige pa may request.
everyone to stand, tapos punta na lang po tayo sa harapan. Sige po, move na lang po tayo forward. Tatanggalin na lang po natin yung podium. Sige po. Sige sir, go ahead po. Layo na po kayo sa Cut na lang po yung iba sa stage natin. Yung mga girls po natin. Yung mga ano po natin. Women. Dun po tayo sa taas para mas kita po. Ayun po, tanggalin na lang natin ang ating podium. Sige po ma'am. Yung iba po sa taas na lang po tayo. Right. Taas na lang po yung iba. Oo nga eh. Yung iba sa taas na lang ulit. Sa likod pa po. Kaya ba? Ayan. Closer sa gitna. Closer na lang po tayo sa gitna. Papunta na lang po sa gitna. Sige pa po. Closer. Saglit lang. Nagpapalit lang po tayo ng lens. Ayan. Okay. Sige po. Ready? Smile din po, Sir Keith and Sir Glazer. Thank you po.
You, Keith and Glazer. Now, let me turn over the floor to Dr. Francis Kimba for the closing remarks.
So, good morning, everyone. And just before we have lunch, allow me to say a few words. No? So, as we conclude this enriching webinar and discussion on the state and future of APEC, I am profoundly grateful for the depth and breadth of the discussion we have had today. So, from history to discussions on inequality and the sustainable economy. So I extend my sincere appreciation to our speakers, Director General Punsalang, Yusek Hepti, our friend, Program Manager Keith Detros, Dr. Vasquez, who meticulously charted the history of APEC, and drew a roadmap for how we want to participate in the discussions in APEC. Thank you also to our discussant, Asek Cancio, and our moderator, Dr. Julius Relampagos, who facilitated the Q&A and the overall discussion. Our speakers, our discussants, highlighted the Philippines' active role and concerns within APEC. Their discussions, particularly in the context of the Philippines' long-term vision, Ambition Natin 2040, is actually very enlightening. No? So this vision, aiming for a matatag, maginhawa, and panatag na buhay, resonates deeply with our collective goal in APEC, emphasizing inclusive growth, prosperity, and sustainable development. So the discussion today will also provide a contextual backdrop against which we can project our future, especially for PASCN, our future activities, projects, and aspirations. So we are very much grateful for everyone's insights to APEC's journey. In today's dynamic geopolitical climate, where challenges such as trade tensions, regional conflicts, and global health and environmental crises loom large, also wider inequalities, forums like APEC have become more crucial. The insights shared today underscore the need for strategic collaboration and adaptive policy making to navigate these complexities, ensuring that the Asia Pacific region remains a bastion of economic stability and growth. So as we look towards a future that is being reshaped by both challenges and opportunities, the role of APEC aligned with the aspirations of Ambition 2040 become ever more pivotal. Our discussions have highlighted the importance of resilience, innovation, digitalization, and inclusivity, principles that are essential for our collective journey towards a prosperous and equitable future. I would like to commend everyone for their contributions to this workshop. Allow me to especially thank the PIDS Mancom who are here, the PAD team of PIDS, PSC, and Secretariat, Jean, and myself, for the Secretariat. And the research, admin, and MIS staff who have been working tirelessly on the organization of this event. So in closing, the ideas and recommendations shared today are not just timely but imperative for charting a course that is responsive to both our current realities and aspirations for 2040 and beyond. Together, let us continue to forge a path towards a harmonious and prosperous future for APEC and its member economies. Thank you, and I wish you all a pleasant day ahead. This formally closes our program. May I invite our on-site guests to lunch. The buffet is at the side. So Keith and Dr. Gation, sorry for
Thank you, Dr. Kiba. So for reminders, all the presentations of the speaker will be uploaded online. You may act via PIDS website. So yeah, thank you. So lunch is served on the right side if you're front. Okay.
Ano ba kasunod ng closing din, di ba? Ay, kung yung mga gagamitin ko para mahirap.